Okay, take two. Okay, hey everyone, this is Uncle Dana here. I am finally gotten to the time and motivation to create a video overview of my dad. My wife's here going to help with the little holding the video while I read all this. Created an overview of my dad. He's retired U.S. Navy Commander Paul Max Harbaugh, may he rest in peace, and his service in the Navy. This project is mainly for his many grandchildren and great-grandchildren, most of whom never heard about my dad's 23 years in the Navy, but also for Navy and aircraft history buffs who might be interested in learning about his service. I'm making this first video, this intro video, very short and as a kind of teaser trailer for viewers to look forward to the final version, which I hope to finish in the next couple of weeks. And that version will have a lot more details and the technical jargon for those interested in such things. Given those varied audience types and age groups mentioned above, is one of the many issues that I'm having to keep in mind as I try to explain my dad's service in terms that those who know little or nothing about the Navy will still understand, while also explaining some more technical aspects that could make the layman's eyes glaze over with boredom. As an example, I've decided to try and explain some of his service in terms that the average movie fan might relate to, that of the famous blockbuster movie Top Gun starring Tom Cruise. Coincidentally, it's perfect timing given that the long-awaited sequel to Top Gun is due to be released later this spring. And why do I bring up Top Gun? Well, most civilians know little about the Navy, who know little about the Navy have at least a basic understanding of how cool the Navy fighter pilots are. Based on that famous movie, and if you've seen that movie, it has some wonderful scenes of actual Navy aircraft landing aboard and being catapulted off of an aircraft carrier. If you watch closely, as the aircraft are landing aboard a carrier, the pilot is in constant communication with another very qualified pilot who is standing on the left rear side of the flight deck and helps to guide the pilot and plane to a safe landing. And that person is what's known as an LSO, or landing signal officer. Dad was not only a Navy pilot, but also a landing signal officer who served during a very fascinating time in the years during and after World War II. One of the big hurdles in putting this project together has been the fact that I have seemingly countless boxes of Navy memorabilia and documents that I've been hauling around with me for over 30 years. Is that red thing still blinking? Mm-hmm. Okay. For the last 30 years, and finally I'm in a situation where I can lay all of it out to make sense of it all. Back in 1988, just after Dad passed away, my mom, his wife Dorothy, was so distraught after losing her Navy hero husband after 50 years that she started actually throwing away a lot of his stuff, Navy stuff. And fortunately, I was able to save a majority of it, but sadly, some very interesting historical items did wind up in the San Diego landfill. Another reason for my drive to get this project completed is given the recent passing away of my oldest brother, who was the only other brother to serve in the Navy, and the remaining brothers know very little about the Navy and the extent of what Dad did while he's in service. Let's see. Quickly, Dad served from 1942 to 65, starting off in World War II and as a TBM Avenger and SBD Dauntless bomber pilot. All of this I'll cover more in depth in the final version, but in short, Dad served in an incredible era of post-World War II where the jet fighters had replaced the propeller-driven birds of the past, and as a senior landing signal officer after the war, he was on the cutting edge of some of the most significant developments within naval aviation, specifically that of carrier aviation. There are a couple of bulletized points, backing up a bit. For those who don't know, I also served in the Navy in the late 80s and early 90s and created a series of short videos. Let me just show a couple pictures real quick. That's me next to the Viking. I flew in the backseat of the S3 Viking, and the first Viking ever in combat in Desert Storm. Long story, but I created a series of short videos covering my Navy service, and those who have taken the time to view the videos can start to see how truly strange it is how I wound up doing something so similar to what my dad actually helped to create. These are a couple bulletized points on a job resume. Just show the resume real quick.
Yeah, I did already.
Okay, that's the resume, and I'm reading just a couple of bullet points. It says, let's see, from 1962 to 1965, he was superintendent of aviation training, directing operational readiness and mobilization training for 31 Naval Air Reserve squadrons. Significant achievement. It says he developed the complete anti-submarine warfare seat position trainers for both carrier and land-based ASW aircraft. I say, how strange is that I never knew anything about this aspect of his service and wound up actually training in the very building at Naval Air Station North Island at VS-41 that he helped to create, as well as become one of the most highly decorated enlisted air crewmen to ever fly in those very ASW aircraft noted above. No joke. I never knew any of this until after he passed away. The next bullet point says, from 1959 to 1962, he was training officer for the entire Pacific Fleet's landing signal officer training program. And significant achievements is he proposed, designed, and tested the pilot landing aid television system, also known as the Platt camera. And basically, it's a really cool camera that's mounted in the flight deck near the rear of the ship. So anywhere on board the ship, you can look up to a television and see the aircraft landing on the back of the ship. Among other bullets, it states that he authored the original first edition of the LSO NATOPS manual, which is considered the Bible for training all future pilots on carrier landing operations. And this is a copy of that first edition of the NATOPS manual. And if you zoom in, you can see there's a picture of a LSO with his paddles, which are those very same paddles I have here. And that's my dad. He's got an embroidered tiger on the back of that, on the back of his flights, or the LSO suit. I have the suit too. It's got the cool. I'll have to bring it in. It's out in the garage. It's got the cool what do you call it? Neon colors, pink and yellow for the pilots to be able to see better. But aside from that, he also supervised the fleet introduction of the F-4 Phantom aircraft during its introduction to the fleet, as well as he was designated an A-4 Skyhawk test pilot. Amongst all this stuff are some really interesting and of all things, very funny correspondence that I found in his effects, messages and documents that I think many older Navy pilots would love to see. I've also have a ton of old photos. Let me show you some of those. I've got a whole bunch of these old, look like crash investigation photos, big stacks of them that came in this giant binder, amongst other really cool old photos. Hang on, where was I here real quick? I have a ton of old photos, and let me read a quick and I'm going to wrap up here. I have a really quick bio I want to read that accompanied an article that he wrote in this Naval Aviation News magazine from January of 1962. And inside there's an article entitled, "Where Stands the LSO?" And yeah, that's a little patch. But it's a really great article. It's talking about if the LSO is ever going to be done away with, because computers were coming of age back then. And let me just read real quick the bio that's in the back of this magazine. It says, Commander Harbaugh, where stands the LSO on page 16, is currently attached to the staff of Commander Carrier Air Group 12 at Naval Air Station Miramar. In the billet of LSO Training Officer, he directs the NAVAIRPAC LSO training program for attack carrier air groups. He entered the Navy Cadet Program, Naval Aviation Cadet Program in Los Angeles, California in September 1942, and in 1944 he was designated a landing signal officer. Commander Harbaugh's duties, LSO duties, have been performed on 33 different aircraft carriers, including Sable, Wolverine, Ranger CV-4, Saratoga CV-3, including CVEs, CVLs, and CVs, CVSs, and CVAs. He states that his only claim to fame is that he was an LSO before he was old enough to vote. So hopefully I've sparked an interest in all of my of Dad's grandkids to learn more about what Grandpa Paul Harbaugh did in the Navy, and hope to have a full and final video completed in the near future. Thanks for taking the time to watch this.